The orbital station never truly slept. Lights glowed in long metal corridors, ships hummed in distant hangars, and voices from a dozen alien species blended into a constant murmur. In the middle of that endless motion sat a small repair bay where Ethan worked alone. Ethan was human, one of the few on the station. Most aliens ignored him. Some watched him with quiet suspicion. Humans had a reputation for being unpredictable, and that made others uncomfortable. Ethan didn't mind. He preferred machines anyway. A broken translator unit lay open on his work table. Tiny sparks flickered as he adjusted the wiring. His focus was steady, calm. Fixing machines was simple. Machines followed rules. People did not. The door sensor chimed softly. Ethan looked up. An alien woman stepped inside, holding the hand of a small child. The mother's skin shimmered faintly blue under the workshop lights. Her eyes moved quickly, scanning the room like she expected danger to jump out from the walls. The child was different. Curious. She stared at Ethan like he was the most interesting thing in the universe. The mother spoke quietly. Her voice trembled through the translator. "My device, it is broken. Can you repair it?" Ethan nodded. "Sure. Put it here." She placed a cracked data pad on the table. Her hand shook slightly. Ethan noticed, but he didn't ask questions. The station was full of people hiding from something. While he worked, the little girl never stopped watching him. Her eyes followed every movement of his hands. Every spark. Every twist of a tool. Ethan smiled politely. "You like machines?" The girl didn't answer. She just stepped closer. Her mother stiffened. "Stay close," she whispered sharply. But the child gently slipped free and walked toward Ethan. He paused his work. The workshop suddenly felt very quiet. The girl stood right beside him. She tilted her head, studying his face with deep curiosity. Ethan felt strangely aware of her gaze, like she was trying to understand something important. Then, without hesitation, she reached out and grabbed his hand. Her touch was warm and steady. Ethan blinked. "Hey there." The child looked directly into his eyes. Her voice was soft. "Will you be my dad?" The words hung in the air. Everything stopped. The hum of the station felt distant. Conversations outside faded into silence. Even Ethan's breath caught in his chest. He stared at her, unsure he heard correctly. Behind her, the mother froze. Not shocked. Not angry. Frozen with pure fear. Her eyes widened. Her body locked in place like a statue. She didn't even blink. Ethan gave a nervous laugh. That's that sweet kid, but..." The mother suddenly dropped to her knees. Her voice came out in a trembling whisper. "You don't understand what she just did." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" Before she could answer, a sharp alarm screamed through the corridor outside. Red lights flashed across the workshop walls. Heavy footsteps thundered closer. The girl tightened her grip on Ethan's hand. He felt it, a sudden pulse, like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. A strange warmth spread up his arm. The mother's whisper was barely audible. "They felt it." "Felt what?" Ethan asked. Her voice cracked. "The bond." The footsteps stopped outside the door. Silence fell. Then the workshop entrance slid open. Armed station officers filled the doorway. Their armor gleamed under the flashing lights. Weapons remained lowered, but ready. Their eyes locked onto Ethan. Not the mother. Not the child. Ethan raised his free hand slowly. "Okay, what's going on?" No one answered. The officers looked uneasy, confused. One of them whispered to another, and Ethan caught a single word through the translator. "Impossible." The child squeezed his hand again. This time Ethan felt something stronger, fear, but not his own. It rolled through him like a wave. He looked down at her. She wasn't scared of the officers. She was scared for him. The realization hit hard. The mother's voice trembled again. "Please, don't let go." Ethan's instincts screamed to step away, to break contact, to escape whatever madness he had just stepped into. But the child's small fingers held tight. Trusting. Certain. The officers hesitated like they were facing something they didn't understand. Their leader stepped forward cautiously. You, the officer said slowly, eyes fixed on Ethan. Do you accept what has happened? Ethan stared back. I don't even know what happened. The officer's expression darkened. That child has chosen you. Ethan blinked. Chosen me for what? No one answered. The silence was heavy. Dangerous. The girl looked up at Ethan again. Her eyes were calm now, filled with simple certainty. You're safe, she said softly. You're my dad. And for reasons Ethan couldn't explain, a part of him believed her. The red lights kept flashing. The officers waited. The mother trembled. And Ethan stood in the center of it all, holding the hand of an alien child who had just changed his life with a single question. He didn't know what the bond meant. He didn't know why armed officers looked afraid of him. But one thing was clear. Whatever happened next, there was no going back. The flashing red lights painted the repair bay in sharp pulses. Ethan stood frozen, the alien girl's small hand still wrapped around his. He could feel her heartbeat, fast but steady, like it was echoing inside his own chest. The armed officers did not move closer. They watched him. Not with anger. With fear. Ethan swallowed. Okay, someone explain what's happening. The alien mother slowly rose from her knees. Her hands trembled as she stepped beside her daughter. She did not try to pull the girl away. Instead, she looked at Ethan with a mix of apology and desperation. My child, she said quietly, has bonded with you. Ethan frowned. Bonded? Like, emotionally? The lead officer shook his head. His voice came through the translator, low and careful. No. This is a sacred genetic bond. It is recognized by our entire civilization. It cannot be reversed. Ethan blinked. That sounds serious. The mother gave a weak nod. It is more than serious. It is ancient law. When a child chooses a protector, that protector becomes family. By blood, by law, by honor. Ethan looked down at the girl. She stared back with calm certainty, like this was the most natural thing in the universe. You chose me? Ethan asked gently. She nodded once. You feel safe. The simple words hit harder than he expected. The officer stepped forward slightly, careful not to seem threatening. The bond signal has already spread through the station network. Every authority knows. Every faction knows. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And that's bad, why? The mother hesitated. Then she spoke the truth. My daughter is different. Rare. Her ability to choose beyond her species is something many powerful groups want to control. Ethan's stomach tightened. Control how? The officer answered bluntly. Weaponization. Politics. Influence. Whoever controls her, controls what this bond could become. Ethan looked at the child again. She squeezed his hand gently, unaware of the storm around her. You mean, Ethan said slowly, people are going to fight over a kid? Yes, the mother whispered. And now, the weight of the situation settled over him. He let out a quiet breath. So what happens next? The officers exchanged uneasy glances. The leader finally spoke. By sacred law, we cannot harm you. You are her protector now. Any attack on you is an attack on the bond itself. Which is forbidden, another officer added quickly. Ethan scratched the back of his neck. That's convenient. It is also dangerous, the mother said. Sacred law protects you, but it also paints a target on your back. There are those who do not respect tradition. As if summoned by her words, Ethan felt another pulse from the girl, a sharp ripple of fear. He didn't understand how, but he sensed it clearly. They're coming, the girl whispered. The officers stiffened. The station lights flickered. The leader spoke urgently into his communicator. Multiple unauthorized signatures approaching the sector. Fast. Ethan exhaled. That doesn't sound good. It isn't, the officer replied. The mother's voice trembled. They came sooner than I feared. Ethan's mind raced. He was a mechanic, not a hero. He fixed broken machines, not ancient alien politics. Yet here he stood, in the center of something far bigger than himself. The girl tugged his hand. Dad, she said softly. The word felt strange, heavy, but not wrong. Ethan crouched to her level. Hey, you okay? She nodded. You won't leave. It wasn't a question. It was trust. And that trust did something inside him. Fear gave way to a quiet determination. He stood and faced the officers. All right, if sacred law protects me, then help us get out of here. The officers hesitated. Then the leader nodded sharply. We will escort you. But once you leave this sector, you are on your own. That's fair, Ethan said. The mother looked at him in disbelief. You would risk this, for us? Ethan shrugged lightly. Kid chose me. Seems rude to walk away. For the first time since entering the workshop, the mother smiled, small, but real. A distant explosion echoed through the corridor. The officers snapped into action. Move. Now. Ethan grabbed his tool bag out of instinct. He didn't know why, but it felt wrong to leave it behind. The girl stayed glued to his side, her grip steady. They stepped into the corridor. Smoke curled from a blast door down the hall. Shadows moved beyond it, silhouettes of armed figures forcing their way through. The officers formed a protective line. Stay behind us, the leader barked. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. Yet beneath the fear was something else, that strange shared rhythm with the child. A sense of warning. Left tunnel, Ethan said suddenly. The officer glanced back. What? Trust me. Left tunnel. There was no time to argue. The officers signaled the group, and they turned sharply into a maintenance passage. Moments later, blaster fire tore through the main corridor they had just left. The officers stared at Ethan. How did you know? One demanded. Ethan looked down at the girl. She smiled faintly. I just felt it, he admitted. The leader nodded slowly. The bond is already working. They pushed deeper into the tunnels, alarms screaming behind them. Footsteps thundered in pursuit. Ethan tightened his grip on the girl's hand. Whatever this bond was, it had chosen him. And he wasn't letting go. The maintenance tunnel shook as another explosion echoed behind them. Dust fell from the ceiling in thin streams. Ethan kept moving, boots pounding against the metal floor while the alien girl stayed tight at his side. Her small hand never let go. The officers led the way, their armor lights cutting thin beams through the dim passage. Every corner felt dangerous. Every shadow felt alive. They're close, the lead officer warned. Ethan didn't need to be told. He felt it. A ripple of fear brushed his thoughts, not his own, but the girl's. The bond between them pulsed like a quiet alarm. He slowed for a moment. They're coming from the right corridor, he said. The officer glanced back sharply. You sure? Ethan nodded. I can feel her fear. It spikes when they turn that direction. The girl squeezed his hand once in agreement. The officer didn't argue this time. He signaled the group, and they cut left through a narrow service hatch. Seconds later, heavy boots thundered through the corridor they avoided. The officer breathed out slowly. That bond, it's already saving us. They kept moving. The tunnel opened into a larger maintenance hub filled with pipes, hanging cables, and blinking control panels. The air smelled of coolant and metal. Ethan's mechanic instincts kicked in immediately. He scanned the room. Hold on, he said. I have an idea. The mother looked at him nervously. We do not have time for ideas. This one takes 5 seconds. He rushed to a nearby panel and ripped it open. Sparks flickered as he crossed 2 wires with his tool. The hub lights died. Darkness swallowed the room. The officers tensed, weapons raised. Then emergency lights flickered on, dim, red, and uneven. Somewhere behind them, angry voices echoed. The hunters were confused. Ethan grinned. Station power reroute. Their sensors just lost half their tracking. The lead officer stared at him. Humans. Ethan shrugged. We're good at breaking things. They crossed the hub quickly. The girl stayed calm now, her earlier fear fading into quiet focus. Ethan still felt her emotions like distant waves. It was strange, but it guided him. Halfway across the room, the girl stopped walking. Ethan felt a sharp spike of warning. Down, he shouted. Everyone hit the floor as a blast tore through the wall above them. Metal shards rained across the hub. Armed hunters poured through the breach, taller, heavier, moving with brutal confidence. The officers fired back instantly. The hub exploded into chaos. Energy bolts flashed through the dark. Pipes burst. Steam filled the air. Ethan pulled the girl and her mother behind a thick coolant tank. His heart pounded. "We're trapped," the mother whispered. Ethan scanned the room. His eyes landed on a suspended cargo lift hanging above the hunters. A plan formed. "Stay here," he told them. The mother grabbed his arm. "No. I'll be back," Ethan said firmly. He sprinted along the wall, ducking behind machinery. A bolt scorched the metal inches from his head. He didn't slow down. He reached the lift controls. The girl's fear surged through the bond, sharp and urgent. "Trust me," he muttered. He slammed the override switch. The massive cargo lift dropped. The crash was thunderous. Hunters scattered as the lift smashed into the floor, blocking their advance and sending shockwaves through the hub. The officers seized the moment. "Move!" the leader shouted. Ethan ran back to the mother and child. The girl threw her arms around his waist for a split second, relief flooding the bond, before grabbing his hand again. They rushed toward an exit hatch. Behind them, the hunters regrouped, furious. The hatch sealed just as blaster fire lit the corridor. They kept running. The tunnel sloped upward, leading toward a hangar sector. The station alarm screamed louder now. Smoke drifted through the air. The mother looked at Ethan, breathing hard. "You fight like a soldier." "I fix engines," Ethan replied. "I just hate losing." The girl looked up at him. "You're strong." Ethan smiled faintly. "You're braver." They reached the hangar entrance. The doors slid open to reveal chaos. Ships were lifting off in panic. Workers scattered. Security drones buzzed overhead. And waiting near a small transport ship? More hunters. The officer cursed. "They predicted our route." The girl's fear pulsed again, but underneath it was something new. She stepped closer to Ethan. "You know what to do." He didn't. But somehow, he felt like he did. Ethan studied the hangar. Fuel lines. Cargo stacks. A suspended crane loaded with containers. Another plan formed. "Cover me," he said. Before anyone could argue, he sprinted toward the crane controls. Blaster fire chased him. Sparks jumped from the floor around his feet. He dove behind the control pillar and slammed the activation switch. The crane swung wildly. Containers crashed into the hangar floor, exploding into debris and smoke. Fuel lines ruptured, spraying vapor into the air. The hunters staggered back, disoriented. "Now!" Ethan yelled. The officers pushed forward, clearing a path. Ethan grabbed the girl and her mother, pulling them through the smoke toward the transport ship. They boarded just as explosions rippled behind them. The hatch slammed shut. The ship lifted. Through the viewport, Ethan saw the hangar disappear into smoke and flashing lights. Silence filled the cabin. The girl leaned against him, calm at last. The bond settled into a steady warmth. The mother stared at Ethan with awe. "You turned chaos into escape." Ethan exhaled slowly. Sometimes chaos is the plan. Outside, the station shrank into the distance. But Ethan knew this wasn't over. They had escaped. And now the entire station knew exactly who and what he had become. The small transport ship drifted in silence, engines humming softly as the chaos of the station faded behind them. Ethan sat strapped into a jump seat, breathing slowly, trying to steady his racing heart. The alien girl leaned against him, her small hands still wrapped around his. The warmth of the bond pulsed gently now, no longer filled with fear, only calm. For the first time since the escape, everything felt quiet. The mother sat across from them, watching Ethan with a look he couldn't fully read. Gratitude, disbelief, and something close to hope. "You saved us," she said softly. Ethan shook his head. "We saved each other." The girl looked up at him. Her bright eyes were steady. "You didn't let go," she said. Ethan smiled faintly. "I said I wouldn't." The calm didn't last. A warning tone beeped from the cockpit. The officer pilot cursed under his breath. "We have incoming ships." Ethan straightened. "Hunters?" "Yes," the officer replied grimly. "3 of them. Fast." The mother's hands tightened. Fear rippled through the bond, but Ethan felt something else beneath it. Resolve. The girl squeezed his hand. They won't stop. Ethan nodded slowly. Then we stop running. The mother stared at him. You cannot fight them in this ship. I'm not planning to outgun them, Ethan said. I'm planning to outthink them. He stood and moved toward the cockpit. The officer looked back nervously. You have an idea? The pilot asked. I always do, Ethan replied. Through the forward window, 3 sleek hunter ships cut through space, closing fast. Their weapons glowed faintly. Ethan scanned the controls. His mechanic instincts clicked into place. What systems do we have left? He asked. Basic engines, emergency thrusters, and a broadcast array, the pilot answered. Ethan smiled slightly. Perfect. He turned to the mother. Your people respect sacred law, right? Yes, she said. Even hunters hesitate to break it openly. Good, Ethan said. We're going to make sure everyone is watching. He activated the broadcast array. Across nearby channels, a live signal spread, station frequencies, civilian networks, patrol relays. Anyone listening could see the inside of the transport ship. The mother's breath caught. You're exposing us. I'm protecting us, Ethan said calmly. He knelt beside the girl, making sure the broadcast captured them both. Hey, he said gently. Stay close to me. She nodded. The broadcast showed a human standing beside an alien child who held his hand with complete trust. Behind them, warning alarms flashed as the hunter ships moved into attack position. Ethan spoke clearly into the broadcast. This child chose me. By sacred law, I am her protector. Any attack now breaks that law, and every witness will know it. Silence filled the cockpit. The hunters hesitated. The bond pulsed with the girl's emotions. Fear, yes, but also pride. She stood taller beside him. The mother covered her mouth, stunned. Across communication channels, voices began to rise. Ethan could hear fragments through the cockpit speakers. They're broadcasting. That's a bonded protector. They can't fire. The hunter ships slowed. Their weapons dimmed. The lead pilot's voice crackled through open comms. You are interfering with lawful recovery. Ethan crossed his arms. Looks like you're interfering with sacred law. Another pause. The tension was thick enough to feel. The girl looked up at Ethan. They're scared. He smiled faintly. Good. More ships appeared on long-range sensors, civilian patrol craft drawn by the broadcast. Witnesses. Pressure. The hunters drifted backward. One by one, their ships turned away. The cockpit filled with stunned silence. The officer pilot whispered, They're retreating. The mother's eyes shimmered with emotion. You didn't defeat them with weapons. Ethan sat back down, exhaling slowly. Sometimes strength isn't loud. The broadcast channels exploded with chatter. Messages of support flooded the comms. Civilians praised the protector bond. Officers confirmed sacred law protections. The moment spread like fire. The girl hugged Ethan tightly. You won, she said. Ethan shook his head gently. We did. The bond warmed again, steady, peaceful, strong. Hours later, the transport ship docked at a neutral station. Officials waited, not with weapons, but with respect. News of the broadcast had reached far beyond the sector. The mother stepped beside Ethan as they prepared to disembark. You changed everything today, she said quietly. Many feared what this bond represented. Now they have seen its truth. Ethan glanced at the girl, who held his hand like it was the most natural thing in the universe. I didn't change anything, he replied. She did. I just stood with her. The girl smiled up at him. You stayed, she said. Yeah, Ethan answered softly. I did. As they stepped into the light of the station, crowds parted, not in fear, but in quiet respect. A human. An alien child. A bond that crossed species. A symbol of trust. The mother looked at Ethan one last time. What happens now? Ethan smiled. Now, he said, squeezing the girl's hand gently, we figure it out together. The bond pulsed warmly. And for the first time since the chaos began, the future didn't feel dangerous. It felt possible. Subscribe if you want to see how a chained gift becomes a chosen bond.